Welcome to the Startup Grind.
My name is John Muller. I'm a faculty member at Western. I teach entrepreneurship. I am the chapter director of Startup Grind Kalamazoo. Startup Grind was started back in 2010 by Derek Anderson and colleagues out in Silicon Valley. There are 85 chapters in 35 countries. You basically have people around the world that are actually interviewing tech and non-tech entrepreneurs. This month, is a special month, right? Startup Grind is actually sponsored by Google for entrepreneurs. And one of the initiatives is actually 40 Forward, which basically is trying to push the quality in founders of tech startups. Right now, there's probably about 10 or 15% of the tech companies that are run by women. And so what happens is Google is trying to push that, to 25% over the next year or two. And so what Startup Grind as a partner is doing is actually interviewing women that are running tech companies, one of them being Jen Randall here at Kalamazoo. We actually have 60 interviews that have been held over this month with women in tech companies ranging from Pakistan, Silicon Valley, Brazil, and last night, Gothenburg, Sweden. And so this is a continuation for that. Now, we actually have the hashtag 40Forward if you are tweeting the event that you actually could hook into the global initiative. So if you're actually talking about the event on Twitter, you can actually use that hashtag and you'll actually see other people chiming in on this initiative by Google. Okay, so tonight we have a guest who actually has been very prominent in the tech world here in Kalamazoo. Maestro was founded back in 2007, an incubator in KVCC, which is MTech. Mm-hmm. And I think that actually incubator no longer exists. And so we're going to talk about how Maestro has moved from 9th Street to this facility that we are sitting in at this point. And Jen's going to talk a little bit about basically why are we sitting in an open room as opposed to cubicles like you saw in the incubator, and what would be a benefit there. So let's give Jen a round of applause and thank you for coming. Softball question, Jen. Right?
I hope they're all softballs.
Jen is a very good listener, so we're going to ask her down the road, how she's able to listen very well, right? And so, Jen, how was Maestro started, and how did you and Josh Little come up with the business idea back in 2006, 2007?
Sure. That is a softball. Thanks, Sean. Maestro started in 2007. We came together to start an e-learning company. My business partner is Josh Little, and at the time he was working at Stryker as a sales in the sales training department, and I had been working at Johnson & Johnson, or was still working at Johnson & Johnson at the time. We both started in sales and moved from sales to sales training and then ultimately into sales leadership positions. And Josh at Stryker was looking to build a very robust training program for the division that he was part of, and was looking for various vendors and was really frustrated by what was out there in the marketplace. And I was working at Johnson & Johnson and had a lot of experience in the training department in terms of what good looked like. And Josh was interested in starting something new. And I said, give me a call when you're ready to get started. So we ended up both leaving our cushy corporate jobs, leaving our houses and everything else behind, and started Maestro. Basically, I started out of the basement of my home in Greenville, South Carolina, and Josh started out of the attic over his garage here in Kalamazoo.
So how did y'all meet then, if you were in different cities?
So I started my sales career with Johnson & Johnson right here in Kalamazoo, and at the time had a 1-year-old when I started. Before that, my background is in teaching, so I was a middle school teacher and taught for a number of years, but then stayed home when our first child was born. And after he was born and it was time to get back into the workforce, I jumped into sales with J&J and needed a nanny for our now 15-year-old, and met Josh and his wife, who had just left teaching themselves, and that's how our families met. So that was kind of the first entrance to our relationship, was just a friendship formed.
So then you moved from South Carolina here. Did the company have any sales when you actually moved?
We had one of the very first contracts was through a business contact that Josh had. But before I moved, no, I was cold calling from my basement.
So you made a big leap to come here.
Yes.
What was the trigger point there for that?
The trigger point, it was really interesting because I loved my career at J&J. I had a very successful career and was being moved through the female mentorship programs and had moved quickly through the ranks at J&J. And so when Josh and I got together to think about this idea and he approached me about leaving, I had to really pray about it. And it was really through the feeling that I received that it was the right thing to do, which seemed ludicrous at the time. We had just built our dream home. We had company cars that were paid for. We were living in a really nice lifestyle. And so we had to make the decision to leave all of that and to basically set out without a salary because we didn't pay ourselves for the first year. And so every month for the following years were really tight and very rough.
So you didn't pay yourself?
Nope.
Why?
Because it was important. We didn't have revenue yet, so we didn't have anything to pay ourselves with. And what little we did have, we needed to be reinvested back into the business.
Did you stay in the basement when you moved here?
No, we actually moved into a small apartment here in the area.
The company did?
The company, we actually started kind of out of Panera Bread, needing for danishes and coffee, but we couldn't do that every day. And so we eventually moved into the space in the incubator.
How'd you get there? What contact did you have to get into the incubator there at ABCC?
There were some individuals that were really instrumental. The Michigan department, I can't remember the 5 syllables or the 5, I don't think anyone can. I think they just changed their name. So
They dropped it.
Yeah, exactly. I can never remember it. So we got some great help from that group, and from our conversations with them, they helped us to find various spots that we could look at, and this happened to be one of them. So that was a huge blessing for Maestro because we didn't have to pay for anything but the cubicle space. We didn't have to pay for the walkways or the printer or the tables or the desks or anything. It certainly made for a huge awakening when we had to move into this space and I had to fill it all. But it was wonderful for our business to start there.
So what made you move into that space? Did you hire employees?
We did. It was interesting as we hired our first and our second and third employee, and then telling them to show up at Panera Bread wasn't really ideal. We needed to have a place for them to actually come to and be a part of, and so we knew that we needed a space, and we needed the space to not take up any revenue that was coming in. We needed to be as inexpensive as possible.
How long did you last in the incubator then?
As long as we possibly could. By the time we moved out of the incubator and moved into this space, which was just 2 years ago, we had 2 people and in some cases 3 people per cube, which was really difficult. But the rent was really inexpensive and it was a great deal for us. We were ready though. We were ready months before that. We just had to wait for the right space and make the right move.
Now, was Josh still actively involved in the company at that time?
We started in 2007, and then in 2009 we launched another company because we're crazy like that. And the second company was a software development company called Bloomfire. And at that point we decided it was time to kind of divide and conquer because we both couldn't do both things. And so we needed Maestro, the service company, to kind of stay behind and ensure that we were building the foundation that was required to build these cool new products that we had in mind. And so Bloomfire, Josh jumped into that business and ran after that business, and we ended up moving that whole business out to Salt Lake City, Utah, just based on the fact that we could not find the Ruby on Rails developers that we needed to build that out. So we looked all over the country, Austin and Portland and all the hot spots. And it was really Salt Lake that we found all of the individuals that we needed. So we moved the whole company, including Josh and his family, out to Salt Lake, which is where they still reside.
And there was a cash influx with that in terms of...
Well, there was a cash outflux first. It's not a word, I know that.
So outflow.
Yeah.
So the cash was an issue in terms of Bloomfire and how you run that company versus how you run an e-learning company at that time. So you actually had the ability to sell that company or have some investors that actually would have a liquidity event. Is that correct?
Yep.
Was that helpful?
Very helpful, yes.
So if you look at that, how did that change the relationship between your co-founder and how that plays out? Because co-founders are very crucial in how you run your company. If you go along, the company actually can cease to exist very quickly.
Right. Well, Josh and I had a really nice foundation as friends before we ever started the company. And then when we started Bloomfire, Josh and his family, as I mentioned, moved out west. And then when we sold Bloomfire, Josh continued to work with that company for about 6 months. And I had run Maestro the entire way through the couple of years. And then when it was time to look at what we would do next, we decided that things were running really smoothly the way that we had them. So he has started another venture out in Salt Lake, and I'm currently in the process of buying him out of this business.
And you still have a friendship.
Yes, we do.
Which is
I just flew him back a few months ago to participate in a local event.
And he was smiling too.
He was.
So, has he been the developer in terms of the tech side of things? Is that why he took Bloomfire and then you took Maestro? Or what was the deciding factor of where your responsibilities lay?
Josh, if he were here, he would tell you that he, like Legos, he likes to build things and then hand them to somebody else to play with. And so he is very entrepreneurial and wants to get out there and figure out how to solve that next problem. And very, very talented guy. So he really wanted to go build that next thing, which is what Bloomfire allowed him to do. And then I hung back and grew Maestro, which is interesting. At the time, we didn't really know. We knew that we wanted to run after Bloomfire. We were very excited about that new venture and that new product and what was possible with Bloomfire. We considered actually dissolving Maestro at the time, thinking that we would kind of put all our eggs in that basket, and that the plan was just kind of keep Maestro stable, allow it to be the cash flow the new business. And what resulted was just a ton of success at Maestro, which made it a very viable company and allowed us to not only grow Bloomfire and eventually sell Bloomfire, but then to grow Maestro as well.
So let's talk about Maestro now, and let's give everyone a perspective of how big Maestro is and where you've come from in terms of the basement and the attic. So what would be the size of the company right now in terms of employees and revenue?
We have just made another hire. I want to say we have 31 employees now, and we're 3.8 end of last year million.
And your sales come from service right now.
Correct. Yep.
And who are your clients that are providing that revenue?
We have most of our clients, I should say, we started in medical. So a lot of our clients came from medical device companies such as Stryker or Zimmer or other large orthopedic companies, because that's what we knew. Johnson & Johnson, which is where I came from, is also a client, and we have other pharma clients. But we also have clients such as Dan & Yogurt, Facebook, Twitter, so a wide array of clients in various verticals. We have about 75 clients at my last count.
How do you get them? I mean, you're in Kalamazoo. So how do you get Facebook? How do you get Twitter? How do you get Zimmer?
Most all of them started with cold calls. Zimmer, for instance, was one of those cold calls started in my basement in 2007. And that took about 6 months of relentless calling. And then just that was, open the door, and then we just kept doing great projects for them. I think we just did our 117th project with Zimmer a couple of months ago.
What was that? How many?
117. And then some of the other ones are word of mouth. Facebook, I think that they found us at a trade show, and then we were up against 5 or 6 other companies that were bidding for a specific project, and We won them with our charm, of course. I have a very, very talented team, and our sales ambassadors kind of take the first step, and then from there, it's our strategy team that goes in and really wows them and surprises them with the kinds of questions that they ask, and really helps them to understand what their needs are, getting down to kind of that root cause. And then once we understand the root cause, then the real work can begin to determine what kind of solution that they need to meet those needs.
Have any of them come visited the office?
Yeah, I don't think we've had Facebook or Twitter in the office, although our office kind of looks like their offices. We've been to their offices a number of times. Matter of fact, this table right behind me, I have a picture on my phone from when I was at Facebook. I took it long distance and thought we need that table in our office. But we do have a number of clients that come into our office and visit us.
So let's go back and talk about the reason why you set the office up the way it is now. This goes back to culture, and so I'll have a couple more questions on the culture, but how does the physical environment affect or drive the culture in Maestro, good or bad?
Well, for us to be able to come up with the best solutions, we need to be able to collaborate, and that's a given in this day and age, right? So in order to collaborate, we need to take away whatever barriers could exist in that environment. And so when we were at MTech, it was a great space in terms of a startup, but there were 8-foot walls between you and the person, in the cubicle next to you. And so I'll never forget the very first day we moved in here, one of our project managers, literally it was 2 hours after we had moved in, we had everything set. They came in, they found their spot, wherever they wanted to sit, and our project manager jumped in her chair and was wheeling around the office, meeting with one developer to the next, and it was almost as if we had been here, for 10 years, just how comfortable it felt. But really, it's just about creating space that allows people to easily be able to communicate about how we can serve our clients' needs.
How many different places do you look at before you pick this place?
Over 50. I had a pretty elaborate spreadsheet to determine what was the best, not only the best deal in terms of cost perspective, but then I put together a rubric that would help me to analyze where, what my needs were and what was important for the team. And I have a rather young, hip team, and I thought it was really important for us to be downtown and be close to the action. And so it's really fun to see everybody at lunch. If you come in here at noon or after, over the lunch hour, it's empty. Everyone is out, and they're out, having lunch down the street or walking over to the food co-op or wherever it is, and they're serving the greater Kalamazoo area.
So you like it downtown?
Love it, yeah.
So let's look at the beliefs that you have posted on Maestro's website. I've kind of summarized them as in terms of purpose, service, whole is greater than sum of the parts, passion, all deserve a chance, humility, honesty, and live life. How did you come up with those beliefs that drive what people think in Maestro? And how is it good and bad?
Well, the beliefs, probably not a surprise, or beliefs that I have. And so as we started to grow as a company, we felt it was really important to have something that we could hold on to. So we started as a very small company, 4 people, and it was easy from a culture perspective to come together. We would all jump in the car and head over to Big Burrito and have lunch together. But as we grew, we would have to take 2 cars, and then pretty soon it was like, well, Big Burrito, not everybody likes Big Burrito, and so we had to figure out what was going to hold us together and ensure that we could keep the culture that we felt was really special. And so coming up with core beliefs or core values was really important and a great step in the right direction. But we didn't want it to just be something that hung on the wall and check the box. It really needs to be something that you live and you believe in. And so that it's important for us to hire individuals based on those core beliefs. So maybe a year and a half ago, we were in desperate need of another project manager. We really needed another project manager, and we interviewed all kinds of individuals, and there was one that we really liked out of Grand Rapids, but he had all the right qualifications and all the right skills, but we just felt that he lacked the humility that we were looking for. And so we try really hard when we're hiring people to look at their talent, their raw talent, to look at their passion. Are they passionate about this? Are they going to come in and really embrace what it is that we're trying to accomplish? and also the right fit. And the fit for us is culture, because it's not just a one-way street. If we think they're going to be the right fit, that's great, but they also have to feel like they're going to fit here to succeed, because at Maestro there's a lot of autonomy, so individuals really come in and they get hired in the position where we think that they can use their competencies and skills, and then we give them all kinds of autonomy to do what they do well, which is another part of our culture.
Autonomy, is that difficult for you to handle in regards to let other people do things that might not necessarily go with what you want to do?
It can be, yeah. Yep, I have to check myself often. It's not always easy, but I think it's really important. We hire really smart people and then allow them to do what they do well. And so I think that it would be really easy to kind of lay down the tracks and say, this is what we need you to do, but we have a vision for where we're headed, and we want to ensure that we're able to get there, and the only way we're going to be able to get there is not by stifling creativity and innovation, but by allowing people who have great thoughts and great ideas and want to be part of making Maestro better, do what they do best.
So you gave an example about a year and a half ago of someone that didn't fit within Maestro. Looking back in year 2 of the company, year 3 of the company, where you're in the incubator, would you have made that same decision?
Probably not. I don't know that we were there yet. We didn't finalize our values until we moved into the space.
So the hiring process has evolved over time based upon beliefs that you've put together and hammered out in the company, is that correct?
Yeah, I think that we would have hired based on talent and if we liked them and that type of thing, but we might not have caught everything.
So do you think that happened when you moved downtown, or do you think it was just evolving when you're in the incubator, and it meant, when we hit a certain number of employees or hit a certain number of customers, what was that trigger point?
I think it was just as we matured as a company and recognized that we had a really fast period of growth where we nearly doubled in size based on the type of work that we were doing. And as a result, we had kind of an awakening that if we didn't figure out how to really understand what this secret sauce was that we felt that we had, if we didn't write that out and figure out what that was and communicate that across all the leaders and then the entire team, that we could make some decisions that we would later regret.
All right, external funding. Last year you were looking at getting external funding. You turned it down. You had 2 offers. Why did you turn it down?
Simply, I don't think that we were ready.
So is that a company perspective, or is that a personal perspective?
Probably both.
You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So last year we were looking at some product development, and we were looking at building products that we knew what would be important in the marketplace based on the types of clients that we worked with and what they were asking for. And we just saw over and over again the opportunity to produce something that would create some nice recurring revenue streams for the company. And as we looked at what our options would be and whether we would need funding or not, and what was the right path to go down, I started to explore those various options, because that's the best way to learn. I love reading, and there's a lot of good information in books, but until you jump out there and try to figure it out for yourself, you're not really going to understand what it takes. And so ultimately, I had the opportunity to interact with about 3 different VCs and a variety of angels, and had the opportunity to kind of ask questions, and things got pretty serious where we had a couple term sheets that came our way, and we had to make some decisions, which was hard. And so I called on a variety of advisors that I have in the area, you being one of them, and talked through what the options were, and ultimately came to the decision that I didn't feel that we were ready. I wasn't ready to bring on another partner. Although going through the due diligence process was really fun in terms of talking to their portfolio companies and getting a lot of good information that way. So I learned a lot through the process, but I didn't think that we were ready. I wanted to ensure that we knew exactly what we would do with the money, exactly where it would be used and how it would help grow the company. And so we're making strides to make some of those decisions later this fall.
And this deals with going back to what Bloomfire was in regards to a product, right? So why do you think the product is an important piece for external funding?
Well, I think that you could ask some of the individuals that are here, but when anyone wants to kick in cash, they're looking for a return, right? So we have to ensure that we're looking at ways that we can provide that return. And a service company just doesn't grow fast enough, and it's not always not what they're looking for. But when we're looking at building products, and we have several that we are in the process of building, a couple that are going to be launched this fall. And we can show 5-year projections and show what that looks like. That's exciting to external sources.
So how do you come up with these products now? What's the process?
Well, that's the fun part. I think that's why our business, being a service business, primarily, gives us a huge opportunity to talk to clients all over the globe. And as we work with clients, primarily clients that have large sales force organizations, we're able to hear common needs and common challenges. So some of the products that we're building are meeting the needs of those clients and allow us to be able to build things that we know that they would be very interested in. So when we first started in software, it's custom, and we do. That's what we do every day, is build custom software for our clients. We have the opportunity to take those builds and build custom software that will now be a product and sell it as a SaaS model and create some nice recurring revenue streams for the organization.
Are you a coder?
No, I'm not.
So how do you work with someone that does code and who does design?
Well, we're human, so I can communicate on a human level with them. But I'm a designer of culture and a designer of our vision, and trying to determine how we can build something that's great for the community and great for the employees. But I do not know how to code, and I would love to learn, but there are too many other things that are ahead on that list that I think I'll tackle first.
Do the people that work in the coding side of the business think that's a hindrance in terms of being able to work with other people in the organization?
My not knowing how to code? I don't think so. I think that they recognize, one of our core values is about competencies and understanding what our competencies are. And if we were all coding in a company, we probably would be really great at creating product, but I don't know. We all have different jobs, and I think everybody respects the various jobs that are required to be successful. So our ambassadors are great at going out and meeting people and talking with them and learning about them and covering needs, and our strategists are excellent at their role and all the way down the line. So everybody has a role in the organization, and we don't have to kick ourselves for not knowing how to do another role.
So that goes back to trust.
Right.
So how do you build trust and make sure you don't lose it within an organization?
Well, I think the first thing that you do is you listen, and then you don't overpromise. So you have to, if you say you're going to do something, you need to follow through and do it. So I think that we have a lot of opportunity through our core values and through other engagements that we have in the community to show that we are living our values and that we care. And so personally, I think that that's how trust is built.
I'm going to bring up another situation to kind of help with that piece, Jen. Letting go of people is difficult, right? So you had to do that towards the end of last year. Did you just let them go and have them walk out the door? Or what did you do to actually help build that trust, even with people that you're having to let go?
That was hard. That was a really hard time period for Maestro. We had, as we grew over the several years before that, as I mentioned, we had started as an e-learning company, and we're primarily in training development. And over the next couple of years, we grew into a software development company. And even though we tried to turn a blind eye to the fact that many of the individuals that we had originally hired were still part of the e-learning team and didn't necessarily have the same skills that were required for a software development company, we held out as long as we could, and then realized from our financials that it was in the best interest of the company and all of the employees in the company to actually let go of some of those employees, which was really, really difficult. I know that there are a lot of companies that talk about having a family, and this was truly like having a family, especially when you've started this yourself. So when we made that decision, we handled it the very best way that we could by having individual conversations with everyone, offering, of course, packages to those individuals that needed to leave, and then we worked our best to try to help them find that next job. So we, the next day, we came together and we had, well, not the next day, the next week, we had everyone who left pull together their resumes and letters of recommendations. We wrote letters of recommendations for everyone, jumped on LinkedIn, and then we spent an entire day as an organization and sent out information every hour on the hour about a different person to try to help them find that next job. So we started those networking efforts for them so that they could get hopefully as many leads and opportunities as possible so they could land in that next job as soon as possible. So there's nothing that could take away their feelings about having to leave the company, but we wanted to do whatever was possible on our end to help them through that process.
So that helps build trust even when you're having to let go of people, which is very difficult. You also mentioned listening. And so how do you go about listening better than other people? What are your, how'd you say, nuggets for advice for actually being a better listener?
I don't know that I've thought about how that happens. I think you just have to be, your intentions have to be pure and you have to be present. So I'm probably just as guilty as everyone else when I go out to watch my son play soccer. I'm pretty good at also wanting to be on my phone and checking messages as they come through and texts and responding, because another part of something that I really like to do is be responsive. So if someone reaches out to me, I want to make sure that I'm getting back to them immediately. But what's most important is to be present in that moment, and that's something that I've had to work really hard at. But I think that that's felt when I'm meeting with someone here at the office or in any given situation. I want to make sure that they have my undivided attention. So I try to close my laptop and turn my phone off or put it aside and just spend that time focusing on whatever their challenges or needs are.
So how do you wind down when you leave in terms of getting away from Maestro? Are you able to do that at the soccer game?
Not really the soccer game. Well, depending on if it's cold or not. If it's cold, definitely not winding down. But I try to take care of myself. I head to the gym at least twice a week, and over the years it's been really hard. I used to feel extremely guilty about taking any time away from work, and so in the last couple of years I've actually brushed all of that aside. I leave Monday at about 2 o'clock, and I have a workout, a training personal trainer that I work with on Monday nights, and then on Friday I work out with him again, and I don't hit the office until about noon, and that has been almost a year now. And that was really hard to do, to leave the office on Monday at 2 o'clock. I thought that was insane. I felt really guilty leaving my employees who were working here. But the reality is if I take care of myself, I can be better to everyone else. And so that's been a complete retraining for me, but I can tell you that it works. I can be the best person to everyone else by taking care of myself.
Very good. Now, I'm going to have 2 more questions for you, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience here. One is the value of mentors and how you go about picking them and so forth. The other one is you mentioned you read a lot, and so I want to talk about what books you read and how you go about finding those. Those will be the last 2 questions before we open it up to the audience.
Okay. So the first one again was mentors. So it's really fun, especially moving downtown Kalamazoo. I didn't realize there was such a great network of individuals here in the area, and so it was fun to come down and meet a variety of people that I didn't even know when we were out on 9th Street existed. And so it's been really fun to meet up with other local business owners. So Daniel Jeffries that you heard a number of months ago, Kevin at Rhino Media, yourself. So it's fun to be able to meet with different people, and as you meet them, you get the opportunity to share and learn what their strengths are. And so I think that's part of a community, is you get to give and you also get to share your strengths. And so finding mentors for me was really important. It has been important as I have the opportunity to look at various options in the business. I will call Dan up, and Dan will meet me. Daniel Jeffries will meet me downstairs, and we'll get to talk about all kinds of things, and I'll validate my thinking and get him to share his genius with me to help me make those decisions. And last fall, when we were investigating venture capital, there were probably 9 or so individuals that I called on, and they were all willing at that time to be able to help me make some of those really important decisions. As far as reading is concerned, I find as I'm talking again with people, or Nate, who's sitting in the back, who's always has 5 books that he is reading. There's always great great books out there to read, and I wish that I could just look at them and absorb them instantly, but I don't have that luxury. So there's always a stack next to my bed, and I'm always in about 5 different books myself. So right now I'm reading Venture Deals. And another book, Traction, is something that was given to me by someone a while ago, and I just made it to the top of the list. So those are 2 that I'm currently in the middle of.
Very good. Thanks, Jen.
Sure.
I'm going to open it up here to questions. So I'm going to pass the microphone around. Who wants to ask the first question?
Thanks. Say, I was just wondering, do you use kind of compensation systems you use, and do you offer equity to any of your employees?
Do you know, our compensation is flat compensation. I'm a fan of Daniel Pink and his book Drive, which talks about how it talks about the motivators, and so that people face or use to help them in their as they move through life, etc. So I really like what Daniel has to say, and so for that reason, we don't really offer any additional incentives outside of a base salary and then all of the other benefits that the company offers. Right now, as I'm working through the deal with my business partner in terms of buying him out, we're kind of tied, the 2 of us, but as soon as we kind of work through that deal, there will certainly be opportunities for the employees to be a part of the company. I do not. I do not have a board of directors outside of I have a leadership team that I meet with every single week for a couple of hours every Thursday morning, and then a loose group of advisors that I work with. That is something that's on the agenda this year to formalize, whether I formalize it myself or it's formalized through the process of bringing in additional funding.
Just listening to your story, you talked about you start off as a middle school teacher, then you're a sales rep, then you're starting a company, and then your company's an e-learning company, and it's a software company. So you're and you casually said those things. How do you easily? It's like you just easily just change. And that's what it seemed like, but honestly, that's really hard for people to do. Like people when they start being a teacher, they're teachers the rest of their lives. Obviously, that wasn't the case for you. So, what's your mindset?
Well, I love change, and I also love risk. So both of those things are fed often with the various things that take place as they move you through life. I loved teaching. I would still be a 7th grade math teacher had my now 15-year-old son not changed our lives forever by coming into the world way too early. And so it was really through his premature birth and the scares around his birth that caused me to make some changes. And then it was coming out of that when we moved here to Michigan, because I was a teacher in Arizona and taught on the Navajo Indian Reservation for a number of years. And then it was moving here to Kalamazoo and having to make the decision around going back to school to get my Michigan certificate. There were a lot of factors that caused me to make decisions to maybe go a different direction and try something else out. But each of those steps, when I was a sales rep and had success in sales at Johnson & Johnson, and then had to move my family to Chicago for the sales training position, and then down to Greenville, South Carolina for the sales management position, those were all risks that were a little scary, on some end, but also really fun on the other end, because you get to learn so much about yourself, I think, when you're put into situations that are uncomfortable. And so although I would not say that I love uncomfortable situations, I think that they have absolutely given me the opportunity to grow and to learn who I am. And it happens every day here at Maestro. You know, when I first started here at Maestro, I was the VP of sales, which really is silly because there were 4 of us. But that was my title. I was the VP of sales. And I was making cold calls all the time. And those were uncomfortable. The very first one, I can still remember how uncomfortable that one was. But even a couple of years ago, when we grew and I was no longer the one that was making those initial sales, you know, it was really interesting to come to our Monday morning water cooler meetings, and I wasn't the one that was bringing the sale in. It was, and I was used to like beating my chest. I am Jen. Here is the sale. I lay it down at your feet. Let's all celebrate. And I had to learn that that is no longer my role in the organization. You know, my role was to lead the company, to provide the vision, and to coach and counsel my leaders. And so I really had to recognize that change myself, and that was hard. That was really hard. I had to go work through a lot. There were some really great yoga classes that I took that helped me do some deep breathing and understand that I didn't have to do all of those things, you know, to feel valued in the company. And so this journey isn't over. This is a really fun journey called life, and I want to soak in as much of it as possible.
So you run a company called Maestro, but you are also a maestro outside of the company. And I think it'd be interesting for everybody to hear about your little side project that you did.
Sure, no problem. Little, is that the right word?
Probably not. Tell us.
So what Daniel is referring to is an oratorio that I brought to Kalamazoo this spring. I went out to visit my business partner, Josh Little, in a musical that he was performing in Salt Lake. And when I went to surprise him, to watch him in it, I was the one that was really surprised, because it was the most beautiful piece of music I'd ever heard. And what it was it was a 90-minute oratorio, which simply means it's a large choir, and in this case, a 140-member choir, a 65-piece orchestra, 14 soloists, and 2 narrators. And the oratorio was called Lamb of God, and it was telling the final days of the life of Christ here on earth, as told through his disciples. And anyway, I felt inspired to bring it here to Kalamazoo, and not only to bring it here, but to also conduct it, to direct it and conduct it. I have a very small conducting background. I was a drum major in high school, and so I thought that gave me enough to get something started. So I went around starting anything. I was a Avon lady at age 13, so I started knocking on doors very early. And it served me well over the years. And so I went around and visited churches and visited the Kalamazoo Philharmonia and the Kalamazoo Symphony Orchestra and all kinds of men's choirs and Kalamazoo singers, etc. And was able to pull together a 140-member choir, 65-piece orchestra, 14 soloists, and 2 narrators. Some of the soloists were on Broadway. One of them was my friend who I hired at J&J down in South Carolina, so I flew her up. And we had a 90-minute production at Chenery Auditorium over 2 nights in March, so because it's an Easter oratorio. We brought in 1,500 people each night, so roughly 3,000 came to see it, and it was the most amazing event of my entire life. It was really a wonderful experience, and I think I have all but 3 people, because of their moving to other places, who are wanting to participate again next year. We have our dates for next year, March 20th and 21st. So block your calendars. It'll be at Chenery again, and it's a beautiful venue and wonderful Easter music, and so it was really fun to participate in that. And to direct it, that was very daunting. I had many, many man hours with headphones on, directing, learning how to direct, but it was all worth it. Scary, but worth it.
I would just like to say that I love the setup here. I was wondering, what is the most valuable lesson that you've learned along this journey so far that has really helped you succeed or grow?
I think the first thing that comes to mind, I'm sure there are lots of lessons, and when I when I get done tonight, I'll probably think, oh, this would have been a much better answer. But I think for me, it's all about trusting people. I think that there are so many brilliant people in this world, and if you can bring that talent together and trust them to do really great work and really great things, that you can change your life in so many different ways. And so as part of that, you need to be very transparent. And so I've learned over the years to like let down my guard and just be open and even, be vulnerable. There's a really great, Brene Brown has a really great book out there called Daring Greatly. And there's a great YouTube video out there, and it talks about being vulnerable and being able to share your fears and share how you feel. But you have to surround yourself with great people who will accept that and will be a part of that journey with you. And so I think that's probably what I've learned through all of my trials and tests and successes.
Another similar question is, what has been the largest paradigm shift where you had a belief about something, but then going through this and having the actual experience, you've changed your beliefs?
I don't know that this is a huge paradigm shift, but what I would say is when I was at J&J and I hired sales reps, they were all very similar to me because I felt like I knew what I was doing when it came to sales, and I wanted to hire a ton of people just like me that could go out there and hunt and do whatever needed to be done to get the business done. At Maestro, I've learned that you need all kinds of people with all kinds of varied skills. And I think that sometimes you want to hire people that are just like you and that have, and this is about hiring, I guess, but you want to surround yourself with people that are just like you, that you associate with. And I think that we learn the most when we surround ourselves with other people who have completely different thoughts and ideas than you do. And I think that that's when you're pushed to learn more about yourself and more about why we're here and more about what you can do next, what's possible. Yep.
First, bless your heart for being a middle school teacher. Special place in heaven.
No, that's the kindergarten teachers. I love those guys.
Could you talk a little bit about when you were thinking of starting software development, moving to the software development, the other business? You ended up moving that to Salt Lake City because that's where the developers were. Now, everybody knows that all a developer needs is access to Amazon and a laptop and a cell phone. And so why do they have to be in the same room with each other like you here?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And I think that at the time, we were looking for bringing a group of people together. We worked with a company out of Grand Rapids, Atomic Object, and they're a really great company. And I think that at the time we desired to find a group of talented individuals that could come together and rally together as a team to build this product. And I think that our thinking at that time was that's what you needed to do. And so we searched initially in Michigan, and we searched for people all over the country, and where we ended up finding kind of the lead Ruby on Rails developer was out in Salt Lake, and then it was just like within 24 hours we found the other 8 people that we needed with him, and they happened to all be in that same area. We did have a couple people here in the Kalamazoo office, and we kept them, and they continued with the team as long as they desired to. But I think that thinking has changed. Founder of Basecamp 37 Signals, drawing a blank on his name right at the moment, is
Marissa Myers changed her mind better.
What's that?
Marissa Myers changed her mind better as well.
Yeah, right. Well, there are lots of books and blogs and all kinds of things that are written about it, and we try to honor that ourselves. We find talented people all over the place, and we have individuals that don't work in our office, in our corporate office. Certainly there are challenges that exist as a result of not all being in one location, but there are also challenges that exist of all being in the same location. So I think that there's no one perfect answer outside of just finding the right people no matter where they're planted.
Do you have any examples of situations where Maestro has failed, and how did you end up going from those and persevering through those issues?
Sure. I think that there are times where we've worked with clients where we have maybe not made the best decisions, whether it was in the front end of the project or in the middle of the project. And I think that one of the things that we do really well is recognize that we're not perfect, and that we want to serve the heck out of our clients and do whatever is possible, but we're going to make mistakes. And so allowing ourselves that grace, but then recognizing what we need to do to continue to serve our clients, and then to come back and revisit what it was that made us fall down. And so we have, just speaking from a project perspective, we have project close down meetings once a month. And sometimes those are great meetings, and other times they're not so great meetings. And so we'll always look at the things that we didn't do as well as we would have liked to. And maybe they were noticed by the clients, maybe they weren't, but we're always trying to process, improve. And it's a continuous evolution. And it's crazy to think, sometimes we'll ask ourselves, why didn't we do it this way? Like, why are we just now learning this? But really, that's what happens. It's through those challenges that allow us to see our mistakes and allow us to grow.
Can you learn sales from a book? And if you can, what is the name?
That is a good question. I don't know. I think Nate's reading a really good book right now. Nate, what's the name of that book? Insight Selling. So Nate's reading a really great book right now called Insight Selling. He just shared it with me yesterday. There are some great books that are out there, some common ones, Spin Selling and others. I could be happy to share a list of books that I've read. I think that I don't know personally, I think that selling is something that is part of who you are. Maybe not the selling part, but just, are you genuine? Do you care about who you're talking to? I think there are a lot of things that traditional salespeople that people think of when they think of a traditional salespeople, and then I think there are true salespeople, which are just people who care. I think personally, and you can't learn that from a book.
If you were going to mentor a young startup entrepreneur, what kind of advice would you give them when they're starting out?
I think the best advice would be just to be patient. I mean, I know that sounds pretty vanilla, but be patient with yourself and with the process. I think that covers a lot of the challenges that will exist. And I know that I have had a habit of being pretty hard on myself, and I still can be, but I think that when I exhibit patience, not only for others, but then for myself, I can see all kinds of possibilities that I couldn't have seen had I gone down the other path.
To make a difference?
Sure, absolutely. I think that there is a huge opportunity to work together to better the community, and there are some amazing nonprofits that are out there. And I think that anything that we can do to join forces with others that are trying to do great things, the better that everyone will be served. So I have the opportunity. I serve on the board at Communities in Schools, which is a really great organization in town that serves a lot of kids in the Kalamazoo schools. It's such a wonderful organization. And every month when I attend their board meetings, I'm always so impressed with the individuals that are on the board and how they believe in the vision and believe in what we're trying to accomplish, which is really exciting to work alongside those individuals. In terms of Maestro, I think that anytime we have the opportunity to jump in and help another organization, we feel that we've been very blessed. I mean, we're certainly not, cash flow is always an issue. It's not perfect, never will be, I don't think. But it doesn't mean that it should inhibit us from giving back and from participating. So last year we had a Build a Bike project, a team building activity. We surprised everyone, and we worked with Open Roads, and they helped us find 12 kids who needed bikes, and we surprised the team, and we purchased 12 bikes from Alfred E-Bikes, and we spent the afternoon putting them together, and then at the end the kids came up and selected their bike, and we had ice cream and had a little bit of a party. So I think that there are lots of small things that we can do. You don't have to wait, and many people that are here tonight are you're here because you're part of the community and you do wonderful things every single day. So it's really fun to figure out how we can get together and do great things together.
That's a good one to end on. So let's give Jen a hand. Thank you very much. Thank you. Jen will be around for the next 30 minutes to an hour, so you can ask more questions if you'd like. So again, thank you, Jen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.